all your help, Scott. Very appreciated. Uh, so, Vivaldi, we probably heard so many times, and I don't believe that very few adults didn't hear the Four Seasons. So, born in 1678, easy to remember that kind of succession of 678 in Venice. Soon when he was born, he had to be baptized, and many scholars guessing that he had some health problems, and then he was baptized right on the spot. And then very interesting also, another element of this early baptism, it was a thunder. It was thundering when he was born, and kind of many people can put lots of twists and also thoughts on that. And another interesting thing about thunder, we can hear it so often in his music. So I'm not sure he has any connection or not. His father was Giovanni Battista. He started as a barber, and then he switched to a violinist. So at early adulthood, probably around early 20s or maybe late teens. His mother was a tailor, and they got married in Venice. And Vivaldi grew up with 5 other siblings. Because of his health, again, we see some parallels with Britain's. He had also health problems, and somehow that will affect development of his career later on, and I will touch it as we go on. He started learning violin from his father. That was his first connection. So that's why how he loved. And when he was born with these health problems, mother decided that he will put him into the priesthood. So very interesting, and that will be part of his life constantly, because he had a red hair. Later on, they called him a red priest, so that was running in the family. So he grew up being exposed to the music from his father. His father was also a member of music society in Venice. And he was trained, educated mainly as a priest. So he started his priesthood at age 20. But he, again, played violin from early age. And in this priesthood, somehow his health wasn't that good. He had very likely asthma, so he could not really speak a lot. And then kind of maybe chant, and as a Roman Catholic priest. So, and very interesting thing, what he also got criticized as a priest, he would be start writing the music in the middle of a mass. So he would be start writing a fugue. Very interesting. And the leadership of the church, they didn't like that. So the first major appointment in 1703, he was appointed, and you probably heard Ospedale di Pieta in Venice. If you go to Venice, you have to visit these churches. Also, there is also the church Ospedale de Maria, where his students were performing. So this orphanage of devout orphanage of mercy, if I would translate that, was for abandoned children. And I heard from my musician colleagues that they would not say that in many of the dictionaries, but very likely there were also many illegal children from this nobleman in Venice. So they would put these children who were born outside the marriage, and they had at least place to be. It wasn't only a girls' school, so it was known as a girls' orphanage / school / church, but there were also boys, but the boys were kicked out at age 15, and the girls were kept longer. So his appointment there was mainly as a teacher, a string teacher. So he was exceptional violinist, and he was respected again with a very early age, playing with his father concerts, and he got also big reputation like a virtuoso at that time, and that reputation followed him all his life. So he would teach these girls, mostly girls at that time, because the boys would leave at age 14 and 15. So the girls were so famous, and this concert became so famous that they were so well supported and so well attended. So Vivaldi was also getting fundings to buy instruments, and this position was just 1-year contract, and then after each year they would be voted if they will stay or not. So he was working there from 1704 and maybe around 38 years off and on. Sometimes he would take breaks and sometimes not. He of course grumbled and complained that salary wasn't great, so that's why he left a few times. He traveled to central part of Europe, but we will get a little bit more about that. As he was teaching string instruments, one of the main form was, of course, concerto. So he was an incredible big innovator. So he would make some very original compositions using strings. And just to remind you, that time in the Baroque period was when the instruments start developing rapidly. So we have these big Italian violin builders, and it was a great advantage. And Vivaldi continued that development of violin techniques. So very often you can hear, and we will hear few in the concertos, these very quick tremolos, like that kind of rumble. That's why I mentioned that thunder when he was born. So I don't know how much that really played a part in his motivic development of the music, but it is very present. And then he used a lot of these quick notes, and we will hear that. Another innovation is using a double stop. And then in his concerto writing, many people follow this thematic and also structural design of that. So we have this very famous refrains. A refrain in a concerto would mean that the whole group of orchestra players will play that kind of theme, and it will appear at least 2-3 times, first and the last at least, but most likely 4 or 5 times would be the pattern, how many times. And between those movements, those refrains, the solo instruments would play solo passages. And that texture at that time would just thin out, and that's how the dynamic was made. One of the big invention of Vivaldi was a crescendo diminuendo. So this is getting gradually louder, gradually softer. And if you probably know that in some of the 4 seasons, you can hear very nice, clear how it builds up in asking for the crescendos, what was very unusual in Baroque time. So he was really opening the doors for the classical music. In the classical music, crescendos were very constantly present, but not in the Baroque music. In the Baroque music, had dynamic made only by texture. So the first example, what we will hear, just to kind of see how much influence in Vivaldi's music is the orchestral texture and this string feature of his vocal music, other instruments music, it played a significant role. So the first example, Johann Sebastian chose. I didn't choose that. So how do we know that? Because he wrote transcription of these 4 violin concertos. So he really liked this music. So that's why I'm saying that he chose for tonight's first musical example. And I want you to pay few attentions in this, how he features the four soloists. First of all, he introduced them one by one, and then later he combines them, 2, 3, and 4. And you will also hear the big difference between this full orchestra sound and then also suddenly with a solo. And this recording, what we kind of chose, Scott and me, incredible performers. You will hear how it's, of course, it's done on Baroque instruments. How can we make a difference between Baroque violin and modern violin? Bow. Bow is a reference. If you have kind of like pointy tip of the bow and wider bow, that's a Baroque. If you have a very thin bow like this, so that's a modern bow. But this Baroque bowing are shorter and bigger space between the wood part and the strings part. And with having a shorter bow, they had to do it more of the retake, but also shapes the character of articulation. And that we will see also later on how that affects also his other vocal music, just because of the string instruments. He wrote over 500 concertos, over 500. He wrote around 350 concertos for solo instrument, and 230 they were written for solo violin. So incredible output. And then he also, in this concertos, he would also start using other instruments more like any composer before. So we will hear also in the second example 2 recorders. So he has concertos for recorders, 1 or 2. He has then mandolin concerto, what is very unusual. And then he has bassoon concertos, and then a flute, Baroque flute, and it is just incredible output. But then he has many concertos written for more than one instrument. And this example, what we will hear, it is 4. This Italian concerto is always in 3 movements: fast, slow, and fast. And some of the features, what I'd love for you to listen, it is this. Using circle of fifths, and let me just play. So and the circle of fifths you will recognize in the bass, and then we have maybe something like this. Always fifth. Numerous times will appear this, and I just asked Scott the last minute to find a Bach concerto by Bach concerto A minor violin concerto, just to show how Vivaldi was huge influence of Bach's music. And Bach, just to play a few examples, this string technique made so many musical themes for Bach. Just let me just play a few. You know this. What do we have? We have 2 strings. Or that's also another Bach's fugue. So influence was huge for these Baroque composers, of Central Europe. So Bach was one big followers, and how he learned about Vivaldi's work, he would copy them. He would copy them countless times. And then his late age, Bach lost the sight because he was straining his eyes so much because of this enormous copying. They didn't have photocopy machine at that time. had to be done all by hand. So let's hear this B minor concerto by Vivaldi for 4 violins, Baroque performance. And you will also notice one thing. These orchestras are not big. And this is exactly what happened in that time. And you will hear also with these Baroque instruments how refined the sound is and how delicate. And it's not loud instrument, it's softer, but the sweetness of it is just incredible. So Scott, let's go with the first
Yep.
example.
Let me know if you can hear it and see it.
Oh, it's good, it's moving. So slow aria and listen the transitions, those bridges. Thank you, Scott. Incredible performance. Incredible. So if you want to have this link, maybe we can forward you later, but exceptional performance, incredible virtuosity with ease, no egos. They're all serving Vivaldi music. It is just unbelievable. The reason why I said Bach chose this, because he transcribed this concerto for 4 harpsichords. That's also very interesting to hear it. It is very exciting. And Bach actually transcribed many of Vivaldi's compositions. He transcribed for organ and harpsichord these concertos for 2 violins and number of them. Incredible. And you hear how flamboyant Vivaldi was, and it was kind of unusual for priests. You're almost uncomfortable feeling that that type of profession will bring this much in. And you probably heard also this storytelling time through dramatic scenery of operas. And the biggest profit what Vivaldi made in his life, it was from opera. He was best known, as we always know, as a performer, and then composer, and then like opera composer. So he wrote over 40 operas, and many of them are lost. And you will hear this huge influence of this instrumental thinking in his arias, and we will hear one very soon. And they're not easy to sing, because Mendelssohn was thinking through the violin, all these huge leaps, huge tempo changes, incredible fast scales. And you will hear that pyrotechnical ability of Cecilia Bartoli in the next piece. He's one of the most famed performer of Vivaldi's music. And then she has also a recording of what was of aria, what was meant really for castratis, and they were also employed at that time in Handel's operas and also Vivaldi's operas, and they were also known as huge virtuosos because they were males with a huge range of from tenor range to alto soprano, and with this incredible male muscles using this female sound. It was incredible, impressive. And Cecilia Bartoli has all that, and you will hear. This opera aria, what we will hear, the opera is unfortunately lost, and Vivaldi also lost a lot. This is a full concert, and we will not hear it. We will just hear the first opera aria. And very interestingly, but he is using 2 recorders as accompanying instruments, as a accompagnato with the orchestra. So listen how he uses this recorders. It's very nice. But listen the most how much influence we can hear in his vocal writing of violin thinking and violin texture. So we have these huge leaps from registers. It's totally unnatural. So singers would never sing a folk piece of music like that. It was just astonishing. And if you have a chance, try to find Cecilia Bartoli's recording of this castratis arias, what was the time in Venice, a very big tradition. And if you go to
she actually has an album that's called Castrati.
Yes, yeah, exactly. If you ever go to Venice, be sure that you visit these few places, and especially Teatro San Angelo. All these churches and they had a number of opera theaters in Venice, and it was probably hugely popular in this Vivaldi's time. They were all small, and they're all kind of acoustically unbelievably impressive. So if you go to Venice, you have to visit these small churches and these few operas. And also, if you have a chance, to see a live performance, that would be. They have also very, very big number of these performances, but just don't go in summer. Venice, summer in Venice is dreadful. You cannot walk on streets. It's so full of tourists. And also another place to see in Venice is St. Marco Church. They have also an incredible tradition of Gabriele's music and also polychoral music. But let's hear this a lost opera, but the aria is luckily saved. And I also like you to hear how Cecilia Bartoli changes the colors in her voice. How he, and you know what? It's always such a pleasure to see the face of a singer, because you see how expressive she is, how she lives through that music. It's all or nothing. The whole personality is in those few notes. It is really, like Dudamel said, matter of life and death. And this is who she is. So see how captivating and involving performance this is. So go for it, Scott. Thank you, Scott. So what do you think? Unbelievable. Unbelievable technique, unbelievable easy performing of this, unbelievable virtuosic. Did you hear how much instrumental writing was there? Just these long trills. These long trills. How will we ever find it in a folk repertoire? Never. So it is obviously meant to, and then it's called an aria di capo, what means you first time sing it relatively plainly, and then second time when you repeat it, you embellish it. And another feature and the signature of Vivaldi is this sequence. So we have and then we have very instrumental runs and the passages. And I wanted also to say it, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow of music. Did you hear how she started this in soprano range, like violin, and suddenly she was singing like in a viola range, like a tenor. So that's also another feature and indication of castrati technique. They didn't have any problem singing, just 2 octaves suddenly lower and at ease. And what was so impressive with her singing, it was always so expressive, even with these hard technical things, always serve the music. So listen to some other, this was actually one of the slower arias what she had in a concert, but listen some of the incredible fire. And she's such a big representative and interpret of this Vivaldi's fire music. Did you hear how much, actually not much, but even this with this gentle aria, you can hear her fiery character of it. And then we will hear, listen some other times. This castrati CD is probably incredible virtuosic. He wrote many of the operas, and they're not that long. He wrote also many these pistachio operas, pasticcio, where you use somebody else's music, you kind of use a little bit yours and connect. But then one of the main characteristics in his operas is lots of instrumental thinking for the singers, not too often done. Bach followed that, and if you remember that, Bach was never easy to sing. We sang Magnificat. And very Vivaldi-like, so this kind of these runs, what is not very comfortable for singers. He didn't write that much sacred music repertoire during his time. He wrote mostly the shorter cantatas, and they're mostly for the female, for the ghost voices. So that's why we don't have the big literature of 4-part choruses. We have this two glorias, and this also piece what we will hear, and you have the music. I want you to pay few attention how he is using something what will be used a lot by Haydn. He puts big emphasis in orchestra playing music. It's not accompaniment. So listen the first part. I will just play it on the piano. Did you hear that? We had a circle of fifths. So this is such a signature of Handel, doing that fifth harmonic development. And the next one could be, and on and on, and on and on. What Haydn adopted a lot, a choir singing this harmonic texture. And it is more like accompaniment than the main melody. In the first page, you will hear just choir singing. And the orchestra is doing the whole work. And then we will hear that incredible drive. It's so typical for Vivaldi. So I will just listen those sequences. Sequence is when you have something and you repeat. This is on page 2, measure 14. He writes circle fifths. Very harmonically oriented towards fifths. And this is also typical texture. We have this called walking bass with a virtuosic riding in the top strings, and the middle part was filled by a harpsichord and violas. I will just I'm aware of time and I don't want to spend too much time. I love to. This is on page 8 if you have your score. Adagio. I will just play it. And you will recognize, we did Magnificat and also in Gloria, both Glorias, he has these transitional short bridges. Do you remember I said bridge in the 4 violin concertos? He would have, and then while we play, and then these big statements of big harmony, and that's his one of the signatures, harmonic signature and textural signatures of Vivaldi. We'll hear many times. Again, we have Adagio, adopting text of crucifixion, actual incarnation. And then listen again, a circle of fifths. And on. And also another thing, he knew the music of this old master like Palestrina. So here we have a Palestrina vocal development of harmonic language. This is on page 9. We have and of course, it's much more bold harmonies, but the voice leading comes from that Palestrina's voice leading. And let me turn. You will also recognize. You probably remember we had one of the movements from Magnificat, very similar like that, and also in both Glorias. Page 10. We have symbol of cross, the crucifixion theme, and you will recognize it. it was used a lot in Baroque. Symbolism was huge in that time. We have this is one of the beams of the cross. We're going down and then cross that. So this is a cross theme used countless times in the works of Bach and many other composers. Again, another feature of Vivaldi we will hear very often is ostinato bass. And we have this imitation technique. And listen to the last two measures of that page. We have circle of fifths with also syncopations. One of the big features, and I feel kind of part of this because I come from former Yugoslavia, and syncopations played huge role in Vivaldi's music, and they're part of folk music in Dalmatia, and it is just across the Adriatic Sea from Venice, and that influence also Vivaldi's music, and also big influence. Although Kwan said that was his invention, the Lombardist rhythm, that short, long, short. We don't have it in this music, but many of the other works we do. And then to round this off, we end up from page 14 reintroducing that first theme, and this is type of ritornello texture and theme. So again here. And then between that, we will have this solo section when the piano comes. Although the bass is constantly driving that rhythm. So let's hear this piece. This is also a wonderful recording. Scott, do you know who the performers are? I think it's a French group.
Yes, it's because I have it right in the file name. Le Cri de Paris.
Okay. Okay, good. So listen this few elements what you learned from the concertos, how much he's using this concerto type of texture in vocal writing for the choir. So let's hear it.
Potente,
very doable, and it will be a good match with totally different Palestrina, not that long, and it is also making a connection because it is Credo, it is from the Mass. So it is just small portion, you know, we can go on and on with his music and also get into the detail. This arrangement, it's actually, it was different than what they're saying. They switched tenor and alto line. If you listen next time and go with this music, I'm not sure which one is the original source, but we could definitely find a good score. So stay safe. I don't know, you can mute yourself back, and if you have any question, just please ask me or text me or email me. We're still kind of shopping around, but we will start kind of mixing things up now from this point. And I would like to continue giving you some samples, even when we practice online or on Zoom, to give you maybe one piece of Vivaldi as we practice this movement. But listen, for sure, Four Seasons, you will recognize so many tonal paintings. So he was great kind of color and tonal kind of represent, kind of portraying crickets, dogs barking, and dances, some crazy stuff just in Four Seasons. That's very well known, and you can just recognize it. But he has countless times. And where did he learn that? From operas. So it's all interconnected. So stay safe. It is always nice to see you, and I will see you next week. Next week we'll probably combine maybe a little bit Palestrina and Britain. I'm not sure, but we will let you know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandor.